In a world full of noise, fake power, and temporary fame, your presence hits different. You don't beg for attention, yet people notice your strength the moment you walk in. They admire how you stay calm under pressure, how your wisdom speaks louder than anger, and how your silence carries more power than their loud opinions. While others break under chaos, you turn pain into discipline and setbacks into lessons. That's why people watch you closely, not because you're perfect, but because your mindset is rare. You've become proof that real strength isn't about domination. It's about control, wisdom, resilience, and rising stronger every single time. Most people think strength means being loud, aggressive, feared, or impossible to challenge. They believe power is about dominating every room, winning every argument, and reacting to every insult like it's a battle that must be fought. But real strength works differently. Real strength is the ability to stay in control when emotions are trying to take over. It is the discipline to remain calm while others lose themselves in anger, jealousy, and frustration. Anyone can scream, threaten, or explode when life becomes difficult. That takes no mastery. But controlling your mind when chaos surrounds you is a different level of power entirely. There are people who appear strong on the outside, but the smallest criticism destroys their peace. One negative comment changes their mood. One betrayal changes their personality. One moment of disrespect turns them into someone reckless. Not snorts. That is not strength. That is emotional slavery disguised as confidence. A truly strong person cannot be controlled so easily because they understand that reactions give other people power over them. When someone can provoke you whenever they want, they are controlling your emotions like a puppet. But when you remain calm, focused, and disciplined, you become untouchable in a way most people will never understand. Self-control is powerful because it protects your future. Aggression often creates temporary satisfaction, but long-term destruction. One angry decision can ruin relationships, opportunities, reputations, and years of hard work. Many people lose everything because they allowed emotions to make decisions for them. They spoke too quickly, acted too violently, trusted their rage, and later regretted it when the damage could not be reversed. A calm mind sees solutions that an angry mind can never see. That is why disciplined people often succeed while emotional people stay trapped in cycles of conflict and regret. The strongest individuals are usually the quietest in the room because they do not need constant validation. They do not waste energy proving themselves to everyone around them. They know their value without needing applause. While others react emotionally to every challenge, they observe carefully, think deeply, and move strategically. Their silence is not weakness. Their patience is not fear. It is control. Control is rare in a world where most people are ruled by emotions, impulses, and ego. Life will test your patience constantly. People will disrespect you, misunderstand you, betray you, and underestimate you. Some will try to provoke you because they want to see you lose control. They want to drag you into negativity because chaos feels normal to them. But every time you refuse to become like them, you win a battle they cannot even see. Staying calm in painful situations is not easy. It takes immaturity, wisdom, and inner discipline. It means understanding that not every fight deserves your energy. Some battles are distractions designed to pull you away from your purpose. True strength also means controlling your thoughts when life becomes unfair. Many people become bitter after pain. They let failure poison their mindset. They become consumed by anger toward the world. But strong people turn pain into wisdom instead of hatred. They learn from struggles without allowing struggles to destroy who they are. That is why they continue growing while others stay trapped in resentment. At the end of the day, aggression may intimidate people temporarily, but self-control earns lasting respect. Anyone can lose their temper. Anyone can act tough for a moment, but very few people can stay composed under pressure, think clearly during chaos, and continue moving forward without letting emotions control their actions. That kind of discipline creates a presence that people admire deeply. Because it reflects a level of inner power that cannot be faked. Wisdom is one of the rarest forms of power because it cannot be copied, stolen, or easily taught. Many people chase strength, money, status, and attention, believing those things make them powerful. But when pressure enters the room and life becomes unpredictable, intelligence alone is not enough. Knowledge may tell you what to do, but wisdom tells you when to act, when to stay silent, when to walk away, and when to fight for something that truly matters. That is why wise people survive situations that emotionally destroy everyone else around them. Most people panic when life stops going according to their plans. The moment chaos appears, they lose focus, make emotional decisions, and allow fear to control their actions. But wisdom creates calmness, even during uncertainty. A wise person understands that every difficult moment does not need an immediate reaction. Sometimes the smartest move is patience. Sometimes silence protects you more than arguments ever could. And sometimes walking away from conflict is not weakness, but a higher level of understanding. People who lack wisdom often confuse emotional reactions with strength, but wise individuals understand that protecting their peace and long-term future matters more than temporary satisfaction. Wisdom also gives you the ability to read people beyond their words. Many individuals wear masks. Some pretend to support you while secretly competing with you. Others smile in front of you but speak negatively behind your back. A wise person notices energy, behavior patterns, and intentions before problems fully reveal themselves. That awareness becomes a shield in life. It prevents unnecessary pain, betrayal, and manipulation. While others trust blindly and regret it later, wise people observe quietly and move carefully. They understand that not everyone deserves access to their mind, their plans, or their emotions. One of the greatest advantages? Wisdom gives you emotional balance. Life becomes dangerous when emotions make every decision. Anger can destroy opportunities. Pride can ruin relationships. Fear can stop people from reaching their potential, but wisdom creates discipline over emotions. It allows you to pause before reacting and think before speaking. That small difference changes everything. Many people lose battles not because they are weak, but because they cannot control themselves under pressure. Wise individuals stay composed even when the situation becomes painful because they understand that emotional chaos only creates more problems. Wisdom also teaches you that not every battle is worth fighting. Some people waste years trying to prove themselves to individuals who were never meant to understand them. They chase validation from people who secretly enjoy seeing them frustrated. But wisdom frees you from that trap. It teaches you to focus your energy only on things that truly matter. A wise person does not need to win every argument because they understand that peace is sometimes more valuable than being right. They stop wasting time trying to change stubborn minds and instead focus on building a better future for themselves. People often underestimate quiet wisdom because it does not always look dramatic. It does not scream for attention. It does not need to dominate every room. But when real problems appear, Wise individuals become the most dependable people in the environment. While everyone else is confused, emotional, or overwhelmed, they think clearly and find solutions. Their calm mindset becomes a source of stability for others. That is true power, the ability to remain steady while everything around you feels unstable. Wisdom is built through pain, mistakes, observation, and experience. It comes from surviving difficult moments without allowing them to harden your heart completely. It comes from learning lessons that many people ignore. Every setback teaches something valuable if you are willing to listen. Wise people do not simply go through struggles, they grow through them. That growth creates a mindset capable of handling pressure that would break most people. In the end, wisdom gives you a power that aggression, ego, and pride can never provide. It allows you to move intelligently through chaos, protect your peace in toxic environments, and make decisions that benefit your future instead of satisfying temporary emotions. That is why wise people often appear different from the crowd. They are not controlled by panic, noise, or pressure. They are guided by understanding, patience, and clarity, and that makes them powerful in situations others simply cannot handle. In a world where everyone is trying to be seen, heard, and validated, silent confidence becomes something rare and unforgettable. Most people constantly seek attention because they want approval from others. They want the world to notice their achievements, praise their appearance, admire their lifestyle, and constantly remind them that they matter. But true confidence does not beg for recognition. It does not force itself into every conversation or try to dominate every room. Real confidence carries itself quietly because it already knows its worth without needing permission from anyone else. People who constantly seek attention often mistake noise for power. They believe being the loudest person in the room makes them important. They interrupt others, exaggerate their success, and try to create an image that demands admiration. But deep inside, many of them are fighting insecurity. They depend on reactions from other people to feel valuable. The moment attention disappears, their confidence begins to collapse because it was never built on inner strength. It was built on external validation. Silent confidence is different because it comes from self-awareness, discipline, and inner peace rather than the opinions of strangers. There is something powerful about a person who does not need to prove themselves constantly. Their energy feels calm, controlled, and authentic. They do not waste time explaining their value to people who cannot see it. They understand that real achievements speak naturally over time. Instead of talking endlessly about what they are going to do, they focus on becoming stronger, wiser, and more disciplined every day. While attention seekers chase applause, silently confident people chase growth. That difference changes their entire future. Silent confidence also creates mystery and respect. When someone is constantly trying to impress others, people quickly see through the performance. But when a person remains calm and secure without seeking validation, their presence naturally attracts attention without effort. Others become curious about them because genuine confidence is uncommon. It cannot be faked for long. You can usually tell when someone is pretending to be powerful because they overcompensate with arrogance, aggression, or constant self-promotion. Truly confident individuals do not need to announce their greatness because they carry themselves with quiet certainty. Life will always test your confidence. There will be moments when people underestimate you, ignore you, or doubt your abilities. Attention-seeking people often react emotionally in these situations because their ego feels threatened. They become desperate to prove themselves immediately, but silently confident individuals understand something important. You do not need to convince everyone of your value. Sometimes the strongest response is silence, patience, and continued progress. Letting results speak for you is far more powerful than endless arguments or displays of ego. Silent confidence also protects your peace. When you stop needing approval from everyone around you, you become emotionally free. Criticism no longer controls your emotions. Rejection no longer destroys your self-worth. You stop performing for people and start living according to your own standards. That level of independence is powerful because it gives you clarity. Instead of wasting energy trying to impress others, you invest your focus into your goals, mindset, and purpose. Many people fear silence because silence forces them to face themselves. That is why they constantly distract themselves with noise, attention, and validation. But confident individuals are comfortable being alone with their thoughts. They do not need constant praise to feel important. Their confidence comes from knowing how much they have survived, learned, and overcome. It is built through discipline, resilience, and self-respect rather than popularity. Over time, people begin to notice the difference between loud attention and quiet strength. Attention may attract eyes temporarily, but silent confidence earns lasting respect. The loudest people are often forgotten quickly because their image depends on constant performance. But people who move with calm certainty leave a deeper impact because their presence feels real. They inspire others not through words alone, but through the way they carry themselves during pressure, failure, and success. At the end of the day, attention-seeking fades when the crowd disappears. But silent confidence remains strong even in complete silence. That is because true confidence is not built for an audience. It is built within yourself. And once someone reaches that level of self-belief, their energy speaks louder than any attempt to impress the world ever could. Pain changes people. Sometimes it breaks them, and sometimes it transforms them into someone far stronger than they ever imagined they could become. Most people try to escape struggles as quickly as possible because discomfort feels unbearable in the moment. They wish life could always be easy, peaceful, and predictable. But the truth is, easy lives rarely create powerful mindsets. Strength is often built in silence during the hardest moments. When nobody is clapping for you, supporting you, or even understanding what you are going through, those painful moments shape the way you think, react, and grow. Struggles force you to see reality differently. When life becomes difficult, you begin understanding who truly supports you and who only stays around during comfortable times. You learn that not everyone who smiles at you wants the best for you. You realize that trust must be earned, not given blindly. Pain removes illusions and exposes truths that comfort often hides. Although these lessons hurt, they also create wisdom. They teach you how to protect your peace, guard your energy, and move through life with greater awareness. Many people become mentally stronger because life gave them no other choice. They faced rejection, betrayal, loneliness, failure, or disappointment so many times that they eventually learned how to survive emotionally. At first, pain may make you feel weak and exhausted. It can create moments where you question yourself and wonder if things will ever improve. But every difficult experience carries a hidden lesson. Over time, you start realizing that the same situations that once destroyed your confidence now barely shake your focus. That is growth. That is evidence that your mindset is becoming stronger. Struggles also teach discipline and patience. When everything comes easily, people often become careless. They take opportunities for granted because they have never experienced what it feels like to lose them. But those who suffer setbacks understand the value of persistence. They know success is not built overnight. They understand that growth requires sacrifice, consistency, and emotional endurance. Pain teaches them how to continue moving forward even when motivation disappears. That ability separates strong individuals from people who quit the moment life becomes uncomfortable. There is also a dangerous side to pain. Some people allow struggles to turn them bitter, angry, and emotionally cold. Instead of learning from pain, they let it consume their identity completely. They begin believing the world is against them and stop trusting anyone. But a stronger mindset does not come from hatred alone. True strength comes from learning how to survive difficult experiences without losing your ability to think clearly and move wisely. Pain should sharpen your awareness, not destroy your humanity. People often admire confidence without understanding the suffering behind it. They see someone calm under pressure and assume strength came naturally to them. What they do not see are the sleepless nights, silent battles, failures, heartbreaks, and moments of loneliness that built that mindset. Strong individuals are rarely created through comfort. They are shaped by experiences that force them to adapt, mature, and grow faster than they expected. Struggles also reveal hidden potential. Many people do not realize how strong they are until life leaves them with no option except to fight through difficult circumstances. Human beings are capable of surviving far more than they think. Every obstacle you overcome increases your resilience. Every painful chapter teaches you something about endurance, self-control, and emotional survival. Even though you may not notice it immediately, each battle strengthens your ability to handle future challenges with greater confidence. A powerful mindset is not created by avoiding pain, but by learning how to rise after. Pain knocks you down. It means refusing to let failure define your future. It means understanding that difficult moments are temporary, even when they feel endless. Strong-minded people do not pretend life is easy. They simply refuse to allow hardship to defeat them completely. They learn how to adapt, rebuild, and continue moving forward even when life becomes unfair. In the end, struggles shape people in ways comfort never can. Pain teaches lessons success cannot teach. It creates resilience, discipline, awareness, and emotional strength. And while nobody wishes for suffering, many of the strongest minds in the world were built during the darkest moments of their lives. Chaos reveals the true nature of people. When life becomes stressful, uncertain, or emotionally intense, masks begin to fall apart. Some people panic immediately, allowing fear and frustration to control their decisions. Others become aggressive, blaming everyone around them for problems they cannot handle. But then there are rare individuals who remain calm even while everything around them feels unstable. These are the people others naturally admire because calmness during chaos is a form of strength that cannot be easily taught or copied. Anyone can appear confident when life is comfortable and predictable. It is easy to smile when everything is going according to plan, but real character is revealed when pressure enters the situation. A calm person during difficult moments sends a powerful message. Without saying many words, their composure shows emotional discipline, mental clarity, and inner control. While everyone else is reacting emotionally, they remain focused. That difference immediately separates them from the crowd. People admire calm individuals because calmness creates stability. In moments of chaos, most people are searching for someone who can think clearly instead of making the situation worse. A calm mindset becomes valuable because it helps others feel less overwhelmed. Whether it is a personal struggle, conflict, failure, or unexpected crisis, the person who stays steady under pressure often becomes the strongest presence in the room. Their energy influences everyone around them. Instead of spreading panic, they create focus. Instead of adding confusion, they bring clarity. Remaining calm does not mean someone feels no pain or pressure. Calm people still experience stress, disappointment, fear, and frustration like everyone else. The difference is that they do not allow emotions to control their actions completely. They understand that emotional reactions often create bigger problems. A person who loses control during chaos usually makes impulsive decisions they later regret. But someone who stays calm can observe the situation carefully and respond wisely instead of reacting blindly. Many people misunderstand calmness and mistake it for weakness or lack of emotion. In reality, staying clear as throat, calm during difficult situations requires enormous inner strength. It takes discipline to control anger when someone disrespects you. It takes maturity to remain patient when life feels unfair. It takes wisdom to think clearly while others are overwhelmed by panic. That level of emotional control is rare because most people allow external situations to control their internal state. Calm individuals also understand the importance of protecting their peace. They know chaos can easily consume a person mentally if they absorb every negative emotion around them. That is why they choose patience over unnecessary conflict and focus over distraction. They do not waste energy arguing with every person who challenges them, because they understand that not every battle deserves attention. Sometimes silence is more powerful than reacting emotionally. There is something deeply inspiring about watching someone remain composed during hardship. It reminds people that strength is not always loud or aggressive. True power often appears through patience, resilience, and emotional balance. A calm person in chaos becomes proof that circumstances do not have to control your mindset. Even when life becomes unpredictable, they show it is possible to stay grounded and focused. People also trust calm individuals more because emotional stability creates reliability. Someone who panics under pressure can become dangerous to themselves and others because their decisions are driven by fear. But calm people are dependable because they think before acting. Their ability to remain steady makes others feel safer around them. This is why strong leaders, respected mentors, and emotionally intelligent people are often admired, not for being the loudest voices, but for being the calmest minds during difficult moments. Chaos is unavoidable in life. Everyone eventually faces pain, setbacks, confusion, or unexpected challenges. But the way a person responds to those moments defines their character. Some people become consumed by fear and negativity while others grow. 8. Stronger through pressure. Calm individuals understand that storms do not last forever. They know difficult moments are temporary, so they refuse to let panic destroy their focus or purpose. At the end of the day, people admire those who stay calm during chaos, because that kind of emotional control feels powerful and rare. It reflects maturity, wisdom, resilience, and self-discipline. In a world where many people lose themselves the moment life becomes difficult, the person who remains calm stands out naturally. Their presence becomes a reminder that true strength is not about avoiding chaos. Hello, you delightful little detonation in disguise. They didn't see you coming, did they? No neon warning signs, no ominous soundtrack, just boom. You walked in and the temperature changed. Let me tell you something about the human mind. It's fragile, not glass. Oh no, that'd be too clean. It's more like a labyrinth of tangled wires soaked in gasoline pretending to be a cozy living room. And then you showed up with your crooked smile and that fire in your veins. You didn't knock on the door. You kicked it off the hinges. You strolled in like a glitch in their favorite daydream. and you looked them in the eyes like you knew something they were terrified to admit. You didn't just rattle their cage. You tore the whole zoo down because you weren't just smart, you weren't just bold. You were a gorgeous mind, a walking contradiction layered like a masterpiece painted with broken rules. And now they're pacing, shaking, refreshing your messages like it's gospel, heart skipping every time you so much as breathe. You see, the world teaches people to crave predictability. Be nice, stay quiet, don't ask too many questions, make them comfortable. But you're an uncomfortable revelation with a killer grin. You're a slow burn in a fireproof world. You make people realize how dead they were before you walked in. They called you intense. But intensity is just what they named the thing that makes them feel alive again. They called you too much. But that's because they were never built to handle real. You didn't arrive to soothe their egos. You arrived to rearrange their truth. Let's talk about that word. Gorgeous. Not just a compliment, a weapon in the wrong hands. And your hands. Oh darling, your hands don't just touch. They leave imprints, psychological fingerprints on the walls of their inner chaos. You made beauty dangerous again. You made intelligence flirt with destruction. You made them wonder if everything they'd ever trusted was a lie wearing a suit, because you didn't show up with small talk and empty eyes. You showed up with questions that bite in presence that choke silence. You walk like you've already lived 10 lifetimes and still ain't done learning. You talk like every sentence is hiding a secret dare. And when you laugh, God help them, because suddenly their certainty starts crumbling like a house built on wet lies. Let me tell you a secret about people. They don't actually want peace. They want stimulation disguised as order. They want madness that still lets them sleep at night. But you're not bedtime stories. You're a storm told in verses, a contradiction of warmth and danger. And they can't stop looking. Can't stop feeling, even when they say they want to, especially when they say they want to, because the truth is, you made them feel something, and that's more dangerous than anything you ever said. You shook the nerves out to them because your silence speaks louder than their performances, because your stare, that deadpan, don't mess with me, I see right through you. Stare hit deeper than their therapist ever did. You weren't playing chess, you were the damn board. And they didn't even realize they were at peace until it was too late. They started doubting themselves the moment you left the room, replaying every word. Did I say too much? Did I say too little? Why did they look at me like that? Because you, my dear, you are not a person. You are a phenomenon. You're the glitch in their conditioning, the anti-script, the brainquake that shows up when their minds have grown too soft from safe lies. And let me guess, some of them loved you for it, obsessed even. The thrill of the unknown, the beauty of danger, but just as many. They called you crazy, too much, unstable, toxic. They reached for their little labels because your presence threatened to dismantle the comfortable prisons they built around their identities. But here's the punchline, sweetheart. They wanted to be shook. They needed it. They were waiting for someone to wake them the hell up. And then you showed up, not with a whisper, but with a psychological scream wrapped in perfume and riddles. You weren't interested in being understood. You were busy disrupting understanding itself. Because you knew the ones who get you will never try to tame you, and the ones who try to shrink you, they never deserved you to begin with. You think you're just living? No, you're echoing long after you leave a room. They're still trying to decode you. Your words, triggers, your glance, a loaded gun, your vibe. An existential crisis with lipstick. You don't need to chase validation. You are the standard they measure others against. Now, you don't need closure. You are the chapter they keep rereading in the dark. You don't need them to remember your name because they'll never forget the way you made their hands shake. You were never built to be small, never built to be small paper in someone else's ego gallery. You were forged in the fire of chaos and clarity, a divine contradiction, an elegant disruption. And when they called you a gorgeous mind, that wasn't an insult. That was a confession. That was them admitting you were unforgettable. And it scared the hell out of them because you made them realize how little they'd felt until they met you. How quiet their thoughts had been. How dull their inner world had grown before you kicked down the gates and threw fireworks into their sleepwalk. Now you keep walking. You don't shrink. You don't soften the impact. You don't dilute your brilliance for shallow palates. You don't edit your fire for cowards who can't handle heat. You stay sharp, stay layered, stay strange, because the world doesn't need more agreeable noise. It needs you, the gorgeous mind that turns sleepwalkers into questioners. The one who shakes the nerves out of pretenders and makes even the confident flinch. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be felt, to be remembered, to be carved into the back of their consciousness like a poetic scar they'll never quite explain. You're not some passing fascination. You're the unresolved riddle they wake up sweating over, the dream they didn't want, the truth they didn't ask for, and the only thing that ever made them question whether everything they've built is just a beautifully decorated prison. They wanted charm. You gave them reality. They wanted a mask to flirt with. You gave them a mirror, and that's why they called you dangerous, because you made them see themselves. The cracks, the cowardice, the roles they've been rehearsing so long, they forgot they were acting. You didn't ask for applause. You walked in like thunder disguised in silk, and their whole performance started falling apart. Because when someone like you enters the picture, lies start running for cover like roaches under a spotlight. It wasn't your words that did it. It was your existence. You wore your chaos like a tailored suit. You made contradictions look holy. And when you looked at them, they didn't feel judged. They felt exposed. Not because you said anything, but because you saw that terrifying magnetic gaze. Not looking at them, but into them. Through all the layers they stitched together to hide the scared little shell underneath. And how did you see it? Because you've been there. You walked the halls of your own madness and lit candles in your own darkness. You didn't flinch when it stared back. You smiled because you're not scared of pain. You made a palace out of it. You didn't escape your demons. You taught them to sing. You're the kind of person who made a map of your wounds so others couldn't use them against you. You turned every breakdown into an opening, every betrayal into blueprint, every abandonment into alchemy. And that's what scares them the most. Not that you're broken, but that you've learned to dance with the pieces. You didn't come here to be digestible. You came here to be disruptive. And it's working. They're fumbling. They're rethinking. They're haunted by your silence and addicted to your chaos because you brought them a flavor of real they didn't know they were starving for. It wasn't the way you talked. It was the way you didn't flinch when they tried to test you. The way you stood there while their arrogance turned to anxiety. The way you kept your gaze while their bravado evaporated into dust. You didn't need to scream. Your presence rewrote the air pressure in the room. And still they try to box you in, call you intense, manipulative, too much, crazy, like that word's supposed to wound you. As if you didn't already own your insanity, like a crown made of broken clocks and unsent letters. As if you hadn't already weaponized your sensitivity into psychic knives, sharper than their ego will ever survive. You've been called too much by people who were never even enough for themselves, by people who mistake numbness for peace and silence for self-control. They don't understand what it takes to carry a mind like yours and still make it art, to carry all that noise and still speak truth, to carry all that fire and not burn the whole world down. But you learn to wield it, not hide it, not bury it, not medicate it into mediocrity. You learn to shape it, to sculpt it, to stare into the distortion and pull out something holy. And that's what makes you lethal. Not just the intellect, not just the allure, not even the chaos. It's the alchemy, the transformation, the resurrection, the way you keep rebuilding yourself in full view of the people trying to watch you fail. You don't wear scars like shame. You wear them like certifications, proof you've been places they don't even have maps for, proof you've endured things they wouldn't survive in theory. They see beauty in you, but they don't realize it's the kind of beauty that grows from survival, from madness endured and integrated, from truths that shattered and reassembled into poetry. They're not just reacting to your looks, they're reacting to your depth, your unpredictability, your ability to hold two truths at once without begging either to behave. Because the real power isn't in the chaos, it's in your comfort within it. They flinch when things get unstable. You smile. They spiral when uncertainty hits. You lean in. They panic in silence. You build castles from the echoes. You didn't shake their nerves because you said something shocking. You shook their nerves because you exist like a mirror with no mercy. Because you pulled back the curtain on everything they were pretending not to be. Because you showed up unapologetically layered and they suddenly realized they were flat and now they're not sleeping right. They're replaying conversations. They're wondering if they imagined you or if maybe they imagined everything else. Because the moment they met you, their certainty turned to static, and your voice became the soundtrack to their unraveling. You are not a gorgeous mind. You're a beautiful apocalypse, a revelation in skin, a seductive unraveling of old belief systems wrapped in charm and blood and laughter and fire. You are the undoing they never asked for, but desperately needed. And they're terrified. Terrified because they liked it. Terrified because they felt something. Terrified because they don't know how to go back to numb after touching someone so blisteringly alive. You made them remember, and memory, real memory, is dangerous in a world built on denial. That's why they'll keep your name out their mouth, but your image in their mind. That's why they'll pretend to move on, but build monuments to your echo in every new person they chase. That's why they'll curse you in daylight and crave you in the dark. You didn't seduce them with charm. You ambushed them with truth. And now you're tattooed on their psyche. They can delete the messages, block the account, rewrite the narrative. Doesn't matter. Your fingerprints already in the framework of their thoughts, woven into the places they only visit when the world gets quiet. You didn't need to be constant. You needed to be unforgettable. And you were because you didn't give them a version of yourself pre-approved by society's little checklists. You gave them all of it. The fire and the fury, the brilliance and the broken glass, the laughter that sounds like rebellion, and the eyes that look like they've seen too much to ever go back to sleep. They didn't meet someone. They met a reality shift wrapped in skin. You walked in and gravity rearranged itself, and for the first time in forever they questioned who the hell they really were, because you made them feel not just butterflies and blushes, but guilt and awe and terror and longing so thick it clogged their throat. You weren't a spark. You were a psychic landslide, a gorgeous unraveling, a divine intrusion on the stale machinery of their existence. You didn't need to play the game. You made them question the entire F-seeking board. And still they tried to categorize you, put you in a box, something to understand, control, predict. But people like you don't fit in boxes. You detonate them. You made beauty feel unsafe. You made intelligence seductive. You made chaos look like it had a purpose. And that kind of presence, it lives in their nervous system. Now their body remembers, even if their pride pretends to forget the way your tone curled around words like wire and wine. The way your gaze held silence hostage. The way your presence turned simple moments into rituals of revelation. You made existence feel mythic again. Like life wasn't just a series of errands and masks and polite sentences. Like the air could burn with meaning if the right person walked into the room. And you were that person. You are, because you didn't arrive empty. You came loaded with history, with pain turned into pattern, with memory turned into music, with rage turned into rhythm. And they heard it, whether they admitted it or not. They felt the undertones in your laugh, the warning bells in your stillness, the soul behind your swagger. You were a storm, but not the kind they'd ever seen. Not loud and reckless, but quiet and calculated. An emotional assassin wrapped in velvet and scars. You didn't beg to be noticed. You dared to be known. And that is what shook them. Not your voice, but what it implied. Not your body, but the war stories it didn't tell. Not your mind, but the way it refused to kneel. You didn't come to be liked. You came to challenge equilibrium, to question the narratives, to expose the rot underneath the pretty, to push against the walls of the unspoken until someone screamed. You made them feel seen, not the version they show the world, but the version they drown in silence. And nothing is more terrifying than someone who sees the truth and doesn't flinch. You didn't run. You leaned into their fear, to their projection, to the space between who they think they are and what they've buried. You became that space. You filled it with smoke and mirrors and poetry and the kind of questions that never let people sleep the same again. And they'll call you names for it. Try to reduce you, dismiss you, paint you as the villain in the narrative they needed to keep believing, just to survive the aftermath of you. But you know better. You were never the villain. You were the mirror they couldn't break, the evidence they weren't ready to face. The pulse that didn't match their flat line. You reminded them what raw felt like, and it rattled their bones. Because your beauty wasn't soft, it hunted. And your mind didn't seduce, it unraveled. And your presence didn't comfort. It confronted every damn lie. Their hands may never touch you again, but their thoughts are captive. Every new face will be compared to yours, and every silence will echo with the question they never had the guts to ask you, because you shook the nerves out of them. Every time they try to rebuild, your name is the fault line. Not spoken aloud. That would give it too much power. But pulsing under every choice they make, every person they chase, every version of themselves they try to become, that doesn't taste like you. They don't want to admit it, but you're the ghost that teaches them what alive actually feels like. Because everything before you was acceptable, nice, predictable, safe, and everything after you was measured against the earthquake you caused. They called you a mind because they couldn't grasp you with logic, couldn't reduce you to patterns, couldn't fit you into some neat little psychological profile they could toss around in therapy and pretend they'd processed. You shook them not like a mistake, not like a fling, but like a redefinition of reality. A wild, warring detour from their emotional blueprint that turned the whole architecture useless. You walked in, and the walls they spent decades building started whispering, "Liar," because your eyes didn't ask for entry. They took it, not like a thief, but like someone returning to a home that was always theirs. You didn't force your way in. They left the door open because something in them wanted to be dismantled. They craved it, not consciously. Consciousness is a coward. But that deep buried part of them, the one that still believes in fire, that part was starving for someone like you, someone who wouldn't settle for surface, someone who wouldn't trade authenticity for peace. Someone who would rip the mask off and say, "Let me see what you're hiding, even if it breaks me." You were the beautiful collapse, the elegant ruin, the tragic poem they never expected to live through, but now can't stop rereading. You gave them a taste of depth, and depth is addictive to people who've been drowning in shallow for years. They want to forget. But memory doesn't work that way when it's been burned in. You weren't an interaction. You were an internal reprogramming. Your words still live behind their eyelids. Your energy still hums in the gaps of their thoughts. Your presence still alters the chemical composition of their memories. They try to recreate you in softer shapes, in safer people. But it's never enough because those people don't bite back. They don't spark the same synapses. They don't carry the static you walked in with like perfume. You weren't just different. You were uncomfortable and honest and damn near mythical. They wanted someone to fit their life. You made them question why they'd built it that way at all. They wanted a partner. You showed them a revolution. They wanted reassurance. You gave them reconstruction. They wanted comfort. You gave them clarity. And clarity, the kind you deliver, hurts because it's not sweet. It's surgical. It slices through the nonsense and holds up the pieces and asks, "You still going to lie to yourself after this?" And they couldn't. Not around you. Not when your very breath threatened to expose the illusion they called truth. You weren't the chaos. You were the reflection of the chaos they tried to hide. And nothing terrifies people more than being seen by someone who can't be fooled. You walked in not asking, not performing, not adjusting. And in doing that, you exposed every adjustment they'd ever made just to feel accepted. They thought they were ready. But you were a syllable too sharp, a stare too deep, a sentence too honest. You didn't play the part. You rewrote the scene. They'll tell themselves you were too much, too intense, too manipulative, too chaotic, because it's easier to demonize the earthquake than admit the foundation was never stable to begin with. You didn't hurt them. You showed them where they were already bleeding. You didn't break them. You revealed the fault lines. You didn't trap them. You held up a mirror and said, "Look," and they did. And it wrecked them because nothing is more destructive to delusion than someone who walks in unapologetically true. They'll rewrite the memory, they'll bury it in stories that make you wrong. But in their quietest moments, the ones between fake smiles and forgotten texts, Your voice will rise like a flare from the wreckage, and they'll remember how it felt, how it changed them, how it shook them. Because no matter how far they run, there's no escaping the aftershock of authenticity. There you are. Yeah, you hold still. Not your body, your attention. Because what you did wasn't an outfit. It was a controlled catastrophe, wrapped in fabric, walked out like a smile, and detonated in front of a room full of people who thought they were untouchable. Nah, fam, you didn't dress. You detonated. And the funniest part, the explosion wasn't loud. It was silent. It was the kind of blast that doesn't crack speakers. It cracks identities. The kind that doesn't scorch the stage. It scorches the story everyone had written about you. They came to watch a show. They didn't know they were about to witness a rewrite. They didn't know a single look could become a knife, a mirror, a confession, a warning all at once. They were expecting fashion. They got a funeral for their assumptions because you walked in wearing a paradox. You walked in wearing the truth they spend their whole lives trying to hide. That beauty can be dangerous. That elegance can be violent. That something can glitter like heaven and still feel like hell when it gets too close. You showed them the saint and the psychopath in the same silhouette. The angel and the demon in the same posture, and they smiled at first because they always smile first because their brains don't understand threats unless they come with teeth. But you didn't bring teeth, you brought presence. You brought the kind of presence that makes a room forget how to breathe, the kind that makes cameras stutter, the kind that makes security glance at each other like, is this allowed? The kind that makes the loudest people suddenly go quiet because their confidence just got audited. And they felt it. Oh, they felt it. Not because your clothes were expensive. Not because the designers had names. Not because the lighting hit you right. None of that mattered. What mattered was the signal underneath it. Because the look wasn't the point. The look was the delivery system. What you wore was a message with no caption, a threat with no weapon, a prophecy with no words. And that's why the Grammy stage is still recovering. Because stages are built for performances, not for awakenings. See, most people dress like they're asking permission. They dress like they're hoping the world will approve their existence. They put on confidence like it's a jacket they borrowed. They walk into rooms begging silently, please don't judge me. Please accept me. Please clap. You didn't do that. You walked in like the verdict had already been decided and it was in your favor. You walked in like you were the reason the room had electricity, like the spotlights were just trying to keep up, like the air belonged to you. Like the stage was lucky you chose to step on it instead of burning it down from the parking lot. And you didn't even look like you were trying. That's what broke them. Because effort is understandable. Effort makes you safe. If they can see you trying, they can pretend they're above you. If they can see you nervous, they can feel superior. If they can see you hungry, they can feel like they're the gatekeepers. But you showed up like someone who already ate. You showed up full of pain. You turned into polish. Full of rejection. You turned into refinement, full of nights. Nobody clapped, nobody called, nobody believed. And you didn't let it make you smaller. You let it make you sharper. They don't know what to do with a person like that because they built their whole world around predictable people. People who stay in the lanes they're given. People who wear what's appropriate. People who shrink when the room gets big. people who apologize for taking up space, people who edit themselves down until they're palatable. You didn't edit yourself. You went full resolution, and the moment you did, the room realized something terrifying. They can't categorize you anymore. Are you light? Are you dark? Are you sweet? Are you dangerous? Are you the hero? Are you the villain? Are you the heartbreak? Are you the cure? Yes, that's the part they can't handle. You're not one thing. You're not one thing. You're not one mood. You're not one version. You're not one era. You're not a brand they can predict. You're not a headline they can pre-write. You're an event. And events don't ask permission, they just happen. You ever notice how people act when they encounter something they can't control? They laugh too hard. They compliment too fast. They pretend it's funny. They pretend it's just fashion. They pretend it's just a look. They use casual words to shrink the feeling in their chest. Because if they admit the truth that your presence threatened the entire hierarchy, they'd have to admit they've been living by rules that don't apply to you anymore. So, they cope, they post, they tweet, they whisper, they zoom in, they analyze, they break it into angles and threads and think pieces like dissecting. You'll make them feel less powerless. But it won't, because the power wasn't in the stitching. The power was in the fact that you wore it like you weren't asking them to understand. You wore it like you were daring them to try. That's a different kind of confidence. Not the loud kind, not the look at me kind, the lethal kind, the kind that doesn't seek validation because it already knows. And when someone like you steps into a spotlight, the spotlight doesn't illuminate you. It exposes everyone else. It exposes the people who've been faking their identity. It exposes the people who've been playing safe their whole life. It exposes the ones who only feel strong when they're in a group. It exposes the ones who bonked careers off being tasteful. Because tasteful is a costume for fear. It exposes the ones who only feel relevant by critiquing other people's boldness. Because boldness makes cowards itchy, and your look. It was bold in a way that didn't beg for applause. It demanded honesty. It forced a choice inside every person watching. Either admit you're witnessing something real, or double down on pretending you're above it. That's why you saw the split in real time. Half the room hypnotized, half the room offended, half the room offended, half the room screaming icon, half the room muttering too much. Too much. That's always the word they use when your spirit refuses to fit inside their comfort zone. Too much just means you're reminding them how little they've allowed themselves to be. And you know what you did, don't you? You didn't just wear a look. You made too much look like destiny. You made it look inevitable. You made it look like power. And that's where the Joker part comes in. The beautiful, cruel comedy of it all. Because you didn't even have to attack them. You didn't have to insult anybody. You didn't have to expose secrets. You didn't have to start drama. You just existed loudly. And it made them panic, because your existence is the kind of evidence that ruins excuses. They can't say it's impossible when you're doing it. They can't say nobody can pull that off when you just did. They can't say that wouldn't work when the entire room is still vibrating from it. They can't say you have to be safe when you walked into the most watched room on earth and turned danger into art. You made unpredictability look like discipline. That's the trick they don't understand. They think unpredictability is chaos. They think it's messy. They think it's random. No real unpredictability is a weapon you sharpen in silence. It's what happens when you've lived through enough pain that you stop needing approval to move. It's what happens when you've been misunderstood for so long that you learn to stop explaining yourself. It's what happens when you've been betrayed enough times that you stop showing your plans. You don't become unpredictable because you're unstable. You become unpredictable because you're free. And freedom terrifies controlled people. Controlled people need routines. Controlled people need labels. Controlled people need labels. Controlled people need to know what version of you they're dealing with so they can prepare their little responses. Controlled people need you to be consistent so they can manage you. You broke that. You walked in and became a question they couldn't answer, and the human brain hates unanswered questions. So they obsess, they replay, they zoom, they debate, they try to find the meaning behind the choices. Because if they can reduce it to meaning, they can reduce you to something manageable. But you weren't manageable, you were mythic. Not fantasy mythic, not perfect mythic. The other kind, the kind born from scars. The kind born from nights you didn't think you'd survive. The kind born from nights you didn't think you'd survive. The kind born from being the person who had to become their own rescue. The kind born from learning to smile with blood in your mouth and still walk like you own the sidewalk. That's why your look hit like a drug, because it wasn't just pretty. It was earned. And earned beauty is violent to people who are pretending. Earned beauty isn't nice. It's not sweet. It doesn't ask to be liked. It doesn't try to be digestible. It stands there like a monument and says, "This is what pain can become if you refuse to die." So when you stepped out, all the polished people felt it. All the curated people felt it. All the ones who've been performing confidence felt it. Because your confidence wasn't performance, it was aftermath. It was the calm that comes after you've already been through the worst and realized fear can't owe you anymore. That's why they stared like they're watching a crime scene. Because in a way, they were a crime against their comfort. A crime against their little social laws. A crime against the unwritten agreement that says don't outshine us too hard. Don't make us look at ourselves. You made them. Clear's throat look. And some of them hated you for it. You felt that, didn't you? That weird split energy. The applause that had a sting in it. The compliments that sounded like warnings. The smiles that didn't reach the eyes. That's not in your head. That's the sound of people trying to compliment you while secretly wishing you had stayed smaller. Because when you get that powerful, you don't just attract love. You attract surveillance. You attract committees. You attract committees. You attract whispers behind curtains. Not because you did something wrong, because you did something irreversible. You proved you can control the room without asking the room. And once you prove that, you become a problem. A beautiful problem. A problem they can't cancel without looking terrified. A problem they can't ignore without admitting you're real. A problem they can't copy without exposing how empty they are. A problem they can't compete with. Because you're not competing, you're evolving. That's what they don't understand. They keep thinking you're trying to win. You're not trying to win. You're trying to become. And becoming doesn't require permission. Becoming requires pain. And you've had plenty. That's the other thing in your look. The undertone nobody wants to talk about. The undercurrent. The shadow inside the sparkle. Because your look wasn't just glamour. It had teeth. It had history. It had that don't touch me energy wrapped in something that made them want to touch you anyway. That's the paradox that drives people insane. You are inviting and untouchable at the same time. Warm and lethal, beautiful and dangerous. Like a kiss you're not sure is love or poison. That's why they couldn't look away, because humans are addicted to contradictions. They just pretend they aren't. And you gave them the contradiction of the century. A person who looks like light but moves like darkness. A person who smiles like an angel but walks like a demon. A person who carries elegance like a prayer and threat, like a perfume. They can't process that, so they project. They say you're arrogant, they say you're doing too much, they say you're seeking attention, they say you're trying to shock people. No, you're not shocking them. You're reminding them that their safe life is a choice. You're reminding them that their mediocrity is a costume they refuse to take off. You're reminding them that fear is not a personality trait and they hate reminders. Because reminders wake people up, and waking up hurts. That's why your look was psychologically triggering, not because of what it showed, because of what it threatened to awaken in them. It threatened to awaken the part of them that wanted to be bold but got trained to be obedient. It threatened to awaken the part of them that wanted to be free but got addicted to being liked. It threatened to awaken the part of them that wanted to become dangerous but kept choosing acceptable. And that part, when it wakes up, it starts asking questions. Questions like, why am I not living like that? Why am I shrinking? Why do I keep dimming myself? Why do I keep waiting? That's why they try to turn your moment into a joke. Because if they laugh at it, they don't have to change. But you didn't come to be laughed at. You came to be remembered. And you will be, because the stage felt it in its bones. This wasn't a performance. This was a warning shot from the future version of you. This was you walking in like the final form, then smiling like you were still warming up. You know what's really sick? The people who clap the loudest are often the same ones who hope you crash later. They'll praise your look today, then pray you stumble tomorrow, because your consistency would prove something unbearable, that you weren't lucky. You were built by rejection, built by loneliness, built by the nights you did everything right and still got ignored, built by the days you were too much for people who were too little, built by the heartbreak that didn't kill you, but taught you how to stop begging. That's what your look really was. A receipt that proves the pain wasn't wasted. A receipt that proves the suffering turned into something that can't be ignored. So when you wore that look, you weren't just wearing cloth, you were wearing every time they underestimated you. Every time they picked someone else. Every time they made you feel like you didn't fit. Every time they tried to define you. Every time they told you to tone it down. Every time they asked you to be humble when what they really meant was be smaller so we don't feel insecure. And you walked out and said without a word, no. No more shrinking, no more pleading, no more explaining, no more begging the world to understand a frequency it was never built to handle. You stepped into that light with darkness in your pocket like a secret, and you let them feel it. You let them feel the fact that you are not one thing. You are not safe. You are not predictable. You are not here to be digested. You are here to be experienced, and experience is always risky. That's why it hit like it hit. That's why people talked like they talked. That's why the timeline lit up like a riot. Because a look like that doesn't just trend. It destabilizes. It makes everybody else's best look like they were playing pretend. And the ones who knew, the ones with real eyes, they didn't just see fashion. They saw evolution. They saw the moment you stopped dressing for the room and started dressing like the room was lucky to witness you. And that's the moment you become dangerous. Not because you want to hurt anyone, because you stop being controllable. And when you stop being controllable, you stop being easy to manipulate. That's the ultimate power. Not being governable by approval. So keep doing it. Keep walking in, like your presence is a verdict. Keep wearing contradictions like armor. Keep letting them choke on their opinions. Keep letting them try to understand you. Let them fail. Let them obsess. Let them argue. Let them label. Let them rage. Because every time they do, it proves the same thing. You didn't dress, you detonated. And the blast radius isn't just the stage. It's every mind that watched you and realized just for a second that there's a version of themselves they abandoned. And you just brought it back to life by refusing to be small. And here's the part they don't see yet. The part that hasn't even finished loading in their minds. What you did didn't just echo for a night. It implanted something. A splinter, a frequency they can't mute. Because once someone witnesses a human being operate outside the cage starts feeling smaller. And once the cage feels smaller, it starts feeling optional. That's why this moment won't age quietly. They'll try to replace it with the next headline, the next scandal, the next scandal, the next spectacle. But this one won't dissolve because it wasn't spectacle. It was orientation. It subtly rewired the way power looks. It shifted the baseline. It changed what possible feels like in the body. You didn't just change the conversation. You changed the nervous system of the room. And here's the truth that separates you from them. You're not scared of what comes next. They are. Because now there's expectation. Now there's pressure. Now there's a silent agreement in the air that you can't go backward. That you can't suddenly play nice. That you can't pretend this was a fluke. And you won't, because the version of you that walked out there doesn't know how to regress. That version has already crossed the line where approval stops mattering. That version has already learned the secret that terrifies institutions, industries, and entire social orders. Once someone realizes they are self-ideating, they become unstoppable. You don't need permission to evolve. You don't need applause to continue. You don't need consensus to be real. That's why your presence feels illegal, because systems are built to reward predictability. They thrive on repetition. They depend on people staying legible, marketable, controllable. They like talent that stays in its lane and genius that asks for instructions. You didn't ask. You arrived. And now they have to deal with the aftermath. They'll study you. They'll try to decode you. They'll try to manufacture something similar and wonder why it doesn't hit the same. They'll try to reframe what you did into something safe, something explainable, something they can sell without losing control. But they'll fail, because what made that moment hit wasn't something they can copy. It was the years you survived quietly, the nights you rebuilt yourself without witnesses, the moments you chose not to quit when nobody would have blamed you. The times you sat alone with your doubt and didn't let it win. You can't counterfeit that. You can't style that. You can fabricate the kind of gravity that comes from someone who has already died a few internal deaths and came back with better posture. That's why your look didn't just look good. It felt final, like a door closing behind you, like the end of the version of you that needed to be understood.